Cut! I do spend time with the actors prior to shooting. My major conversations were obviously with Andrew, and we're similar age and we've had not the same experiences but similar experiences in our lives. So that kind of fed into the way his performance was and how the film feels. It is about me understanding him as a person and then also understanding what the character needs to be. So it's not Andrew on screen, it is Andrew playing Adam on screen.
I've seen you a bunch of times coming and going.
I'm assuming you're not with anyone. Never see you with anyone.
Adam lives quite a lonely life in the centre of London in a tower block and just feeling very disconnected from the world.
I liked the idea that Adam's life was going in a good direction in like the 90s and the noughties and was feeling good, and then it started to get more and more complicated as he's got older. So the clothes he's wearing, he's wearing a jacket that we used to wear like in the 90s. So it's just finding subtle ways with costume to sort of reflect the time that he was at least happier.
He's like many people in London. You can get lost in London. You can lose friends in London. You can become quite isolated.
I think we all get stuck in a look. We don't keep changing the way we look, we get stuck in the look. So I wanted him to look like that. And then Harry feels much more modern and contemporary. He feels like, I don't know what the kids wear now, but he looks like he's closer to what the kids wear now.
How about I come in anyway?
I think that's a good idea.
Don't scare you.
Harry, we talked about him looking really greasy and broken down, his hair looking distressed. We let his hair grow out, we let his facial grow out.
For both of the characters, they feel like they've been pushed away from home for various reasons. And that leads, I think, to a kind of sense of isolation in your life. Action.
Saw you looking at me from the street.
We're basically the only ones here. Can you fucking believe that? I mean, they haven't got security guards yet.
There is a strangeness to where he lives. I did want it to feel like the real world, but not completely the real world, because I feel like, we're doing some quite odd things with the film, so it can't be grounded in complete reality. I want it to be reality just shifted to one side.
If you're not inclined to go out and mix with the world, you can very easily find a place that isolates you, and I think that's what the tower represents. It feels cold and soulless.
It was hard to find the tower block. That was one thing that we found quite tricky, even though there are hundreds of tower blocks in London. And so we did have to build it as a set, having scouted about 800 tower blocks.
I like shooting on location as well as my preference. I much prefer it, but it's very hard to shoot in a high-rise apartment because they're a nightmare to light and you need to have lights outside and it's very difficult. So I knew we were going to have to probably build a set for that.
The question you always have is what's going to be outside that apartment, and in the olden days one might have put what's called green screen there, which means you can drop in an outside environment. We had a new technique on this, which was just a myriad of extraordinary TV screens, all locked together.
We shot plates from the apartment block that we were basing our apartment block on, and then they became the backdrop that was on this LED wall that surrounded the apartment that we built on the set.
That outside view was rolling footage because it had to move. It couldn't be static. The cars had to move, the trains had to move, and that sort of thing. That allowed us to create a very real environment from a stage. Stages sometimes can be a little bit dead, but I think probably for the actors and for us who were around the film quite closely, it felt entirely plausible that you were right up there, floor 27, watching London.
The rest of it was pretty much all shot down in Sanderstead, which is just outside Croydon. We shot in the park that's always been there. We're going to have some wind blowing and these that will suddenly just stop. Then you feel like someone's looking behind you and you turn around, he's kind of standing here. In London itself, we did a little bit of shooting. 68 Charlie, take 2! There's a shopping centre in Croydon that I remember going to as a kid a lot. Croydon, there's a slightly strange out-of-time feeling about it. It's like a vision of the future that was made in the 60s.
Shall we go?
Go where?
Oh.
In the script, he was writing locations he knew as a child, houses he might have known as a child. Someone came up with the idea of, where do we start? And the starting point was Andrew Haig's original house he actually grew up in. And who knew that we were going to end up filming in exactly the house where he grew up, exactly where he was the age of the story.
I think even Andrew, looking, because he had an old picture of that home, and looking at that, and when he went to the house, he was thinking it wasn't the same place. Your memory does funny things, doesn't it? Which then I think fed into the script as well.
It's so bloody lovely to see you again. When sure we ever would?
I took a pretty naturalistic approach to how the film is shot. Shot on 35. Nobody ever wants to shoot on film because it's expensive. But for me, it was really important. Film inherently has a texture and a feeling, and this is a film about the past, and it sort of is a way to access the past, I think, if you shoot it in a certain way. It doesn't feel like pastiche or anything, but just allows you to feel like this is closer to memory, I guess.
I think everyone really enjoyed it as well because of, quite a few of the crew were around in the 80s growing up, so we were all able to sort of put our own little stamp on it in there. I would say it was a really fun one in terms of that.
Did you get to say what you wanted to say? I don't know. I got to be with her.
I kind of make films in a way that just sort of feel right at the time, and I think afterwards you're asked to sort of describe how you created that tone, when in reality I don't really have the answer. It's just that's how the film comes out. It's from a choice of angles, it's from a choice of how you cut. Every technique that you use is subtly building a certain type of tone, and all of those things that you just feel as you're going along and question whether they're right or wrong for the tone of the piece.
Don't let this get tangled up again.